Welcome back to the Microsoft Build Studio. We've had a packed morning, and here to break it all down are two industry experts you're sure to recognize. You'll know her from her coverage of Microsoft for ZDNet, and him from the industry staple, Thurrott.com. They're also the dynamic duo of the Windows Weekly podcast. Welcome to Microsoft Build, Mary Jo Foley and Paul Thurrott.
Hello.
Yay!
Thank you, Sonia. That's as effusive as Paul gets. That's kind of where you're at.
I know, jam-packed morning, I know.
A lot. I was trying not to.
I love it, I love it. Okay, so as I mentioned, there's a metric ton of news to get through. So why don't we start with the man who started it all, Satya Nadella. You know, he kicked off the keynote. Mary Jo, would love to hear what the headlines were for you.
I loved this Build keynote, maybe more than many of the past keynotes, because it was a keynote for developers by developers. All the announcements were very developer focused. There was much less kind of high level talk. And I love that he also gave us a very interesting glimpse into the future of what development's going to look like as the cloud and local compute power are merged together. I thought that was really interesting and very thought-provoking.
I love it, yeah. Paul?
I agree. I mean, Build is my favorite conference. I've probably said this before. I have a developer background. I'm far removed from it by now, but I'm always fascinated by what Microsoft comes up with every year. This is kind of a strange thing to say, but I felt like this was the most developer-focused developer conference that Microsoft has had in a long time, kind of echoing what Mary Jo said. And from the client to the cloud, I just thought, and the whole notion of citizen developer and this no-code, low-code transition that we're making right now, I think is fascinating. It was energizing almost. It was really, really nice.
Awesome. So Paul, talk to me about this theme that we're seeing across the keynote, AI and automation assisting developers. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so actually, I think the single best thing that Satya said during his keynote was this notion of co-pilot for everything. It was it was almost a throwaway term, but I thought it kind of encapsulated the entire theme of what we're seeing with AI and automation across the stack, right? So last year, I think it was, Microsoft came up with this notion of GitHub Copilot, which was a way to use VS Code, AI, and finish writing code for developers. You know, you've got some body of code, it would finish it off for you. And there were statistics about that. I think 30% of developers had used it to finish some body of code. But now we're seeing that applied elsewhere across the stack, right? So they talked about the Express Design tool for Power Apps, right, where you can convert something that you might have on hand, a PDF, a PowerPoint slide, a paper form, I think he said a screenshot of an app UI, and have it convert that into UI that you could use as the start of an application. I thought that was just incredible. I think this is maybe not the final frontier of low-code, no-code, but the next major step forward for this push, because a little bit of a PR problem in some ways. People may not believe they have the ability to do this. And I think this is the type of thing that will get them over the hump.
I love it. Yeah, the ability to take the photo, the RSVP, kind of build.
It really just get you started in ways that just were not. I think people stare at a screen for a long time and don't know how to get going.
Yeah.
And I think this really gets them over that hump.
I love it. So, Mary Jo, what do you think the developer community should be the most excited about from Satya's keynote? We can start with you, and then Paul will
Okay.
Your top takeaways.
I'm going to go back to this idea of the power of hybrid compute. It's very interesting. During the last earnings call, Satya said something about this idea of hybrid compute, and I remember kind of mentally check noting it, thinking, I don't know exactly what he means there, but I want to look more into that. And today, I feel like he really explained that whole concept, the idea of blurring the lines between where the cloud begins and the local compute ends, and vice versa. And I don't think it's just a Project Volterra ARM dev kit thing. I think it applies across the entire dev stack that Microsoft has. So there are implications for Teams, Power Platform, for even for data, what Microsoft's doing with the whole data estate and the new intelligent platform that they announced today. I think this is a change in the paradigm of development computing. It's really big. And I think he did it in the Satya way, very subtly, not a big shouty kind of thing, right? But I think it has a lot of implications. I expected him to read a poem at the end about it, but he didn't. So that would have
That would have been something.
Oh
But yeah,
boy,
a little bit more subtle. That's definitely Satya's way.
been.
that's funny.
Paul, would love to hear your thoughts.
Whew, how much time do we have?
I know,
So,
right?
Go for it.
well, because it depends on who you are as a developer and where you are in life. Just generally speaking, I came up in a world where the resources you had were on the device and that was it. And so you had some set of capabilities or APIs, frameworks or whatever, and it was all on the machine. And over time, it kind of evolves, obviously, to client server. You have data centers, we have virtual machines, we have containers, we have the cloud, we have Azure and all the incredible resources that your footprint is so much bigger than it was when I was actively developing. But looking at some of the specific announcements, again, it's kind of a long list. It really depends on where you're at. There was news for Windows developers. There was news for cross-platform developers who want to create client solutions like .NET MAUI, where you can create apps that run across Windows and the Mac and Android and iOS. There was, Mary Jo mentioned the native ARM versions of Visual Studio, .NET, C++, and the .NET framework. Very exciting. The dev box we talked about briefly. This notion of adaptive cards coming to Microsoft Loop. I was hoping for a little more Loop news, but this was actually really interesting because adaptive cards will also be the technology that developers can use to create widgets for Windows 11 in the near future. And some synthesis or some overlap there, which I think is really interesting. Teams as Microsoft's biggest new platform, new developer advances there, the ability to have collaborative apps where people are working inside of a third-party app, inside of Teams in real time is amazing. Teams toolkit for VS Code. I'm not even sure that was in the in the keynote, but it was in the notes we got. I thought it is amazing. There's a whole range of Power Platform stuff that we need to get to. Power Pages has been kind of taken out of Power Automate, is now its own offering. This way to build no-code, low-code websites, I think is amazing. It's Power Virtual Agents advances. Power Automation is getting better as well. It's just it's just so much. It's like this fire hose of developer goodness. I don't know what else to call it.
I love it. The fire
It's
hose
probably
of
more. I'm
developer
probably
goodness.
this is just what I can I can think of at the time.
Yeah, I think we saw a tweet earlier where it was like 50 announcements made in the first 2 hours of build,
Yeah.
which is exciting. So I know you had mentioned it briefly, 3 keywords, Microsoft Dev Box. Mary Jo, would love to hear your thoughts. I think we heard the words game changer earlier. Would love to, hear your analysis on it.
Yeah. Of all the things I tweeted during the keynote, this got the most excitement.
Wow.
So the idea is you take Azure Virtual Desktop and you customize it for developers so that developers, instead of having to sit there and spin up their dev workstation, get everything aligned perfectly in order to start coding, it's all pre-configured for you in the cloud in a VM, and you can just start automatically working. I think that is a very interesting first vertical case study for Azure Virtual Desktop. I wonder if there will be more like this aimed at specific vertical markets. Like, why not a journalist dev box, right? Or a healthcare worker dev box? We could all use this as long as the price is right, I will say. We don't know the pricing yet.
Like the Mary Jo box. That's just
You could.
notepad in the cloud.
That would be awesome. I would use that in a heartbeat.
Oh, I love it. All right, so I know Scott Guthrie, he also had a keynote. He talked about how cloud-native apps are delivering new levels of scale and performance with even greater reliability. Paul, a centerpiece here is, of course, the general availability of Azure container apps. Your thoughts?
Right. Yeah, so this was in preview last year. I don't know if it was November, earlier than November, but I thought this is, again, Satya Nadella, I think, did a nice job here, again, of kind of positioning these containers as an industry standard of sort for creating and hosting microservices, right? This is in the cloud, I should say, and with all of the advantages of what cloud computing is, right? This ability to scale, as he said, I think from 0 to infinity, which is another great term. A lot of good quotes, actually, in this keynote. And just kind of bring that cloud capability to the serverless cloud-hosted thing that makes cloud computing so great, right? That you don't have to manage a server, you don't have to manage anything. What you're managing essentially is your app. And so this is all about scalability, obviously. It's about what I think of as like modularized code execution. And then it's any runtime, any programming model that makes Azure great. You can put whatever you want in the cloud and just work with it as that one thing. You're not bringing up a VM, you're not configuring it or installing updates, you're not, keeping the app platform up to date and all that stuff. It's just this one kind of modularized thing. And it's just such a natural and excellent extension of everything that makes the cloud great, but just applied to developers in this case.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, Scott's keynote, I thought it was great. Like we said, a lot of news that came out. So moving along, Mary Jo, we also heard about the launch of Microsoft's intelligent data platform. Rowan and Jessica talked about this new integrated platform that unifies databases, analytics, and governance. Mary Jo?
Right. When I'll admit, when I first saw this, when we get a preview of the news for Build, I was like, oh no, not another platform. Here we go again, right? But this is actually interesting because Microsoft for a while has been talking about and working to integrate its database products, whether on-prem or in the cloud, with analytics through Azure Synapse Analytics and the Azure Synapse Analytics Link products. Now they've added a third element. So instead of just having database plus analytics, you also add in the governance piece. And this is very interesting because I feel like people who are chief data officers, people who worry about, is my data safe? Is my data where I want it to be? Is it adhering to my sovereignty principles that I have as a company? Now they have this concept where all of these three things will be integrated so that you don't have to, run analytics on something and wait a day or longer to get a report. It'll be instantaneous. It'll be built into your apps as you build them. And Satya said data, Satya loves to talk about data every chance he gets. He said today, data is your most important app consideration. And analytics are going to become a critical part of your app experience. So this is what this new platform, the Microsoft Intelligent Data Platform, is all about.
Yeah, Paul, would love to hear your thoughts about the intelligent.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are two things here. One is that sort of natural extension to the Microsoft Graph, right, which is a way to take data that was siloed in the past, bring it together in ways that make sense for whatever it is you're working on and make sense of that and do that very quickly. And then I think what Mary Jo was just talking about, this expansion of Microsoft Purview capabilities where organizations can be sure they're in compliance with whatever the local regulations or requirements are, GDPR being a famous example. So it's a lot like what I said earlier in many ways, because it's just that, taking the power of the cloud and applying it to this new thing. When cloud computing started, we thought of it as, well, there's a retail store and they only need a lot of computing power during the holidays. And that was like this easy, simple, to understand example. And that's how we thought of it. But it's fascinating with Azure in particular to see how this can be applied across almost any field here. And I think with data in particular, and data inside of corporations with all of the regulatory requirements, it's just an incredible capability.
Love it. Make sure everyone's kind of following along and not missing any of it.
Make it automatic, basically.
Awesome. Okay, so next topic is definitely top of mind for so many as we look to the future of app development. Paul, we'll start with you. We heard the word open a lot. Open platform, open store, open hardware ecosystem. So let's talk about the opportunities devs have now for developing on Windows.
Oh boy. I mean, Mary Jo and I have been covering Microsoft for a long time. So it wasn't that long ago that open was a dirty word in some ways. And it's fascinating to me how that has changed. Yep. And open as a term, open as a way of doing things, I think is core to everything that Microsoft does these days, right? From .NET to everything in Azure to Windows is an open platform. You look at just the sheer number of choices that you have as a Windows app developer to create solutions that can run on this and other platforms is astonishing. There's the Windows subsystem for Linux, the Windows subsystem for Android that's coming, the widgets powered by adaptive cards, which I mentioned earlier, runs on JSON, open standard. Mary Jo, I believe, mentioned hybrid loop. Mary Jo's turning
Mhm.
into a developer. I love that. Um, so I knew we'd get her eventually. But basically, these are AI experiences that kind of span from the cloud to the edge, like she said. And then a bunch of little things that we didn't really talk about too much: OpenJDK and Python and Node and Git, and these are open source projects, and they're coming to ARM64, which is awesome. And so, Microsoft, I think one of the great things they've always done in the developer space is they meet developers where they are, and as that space has expanded, and it has dramatically, so too has Microsoft's offerings. So this show is rather incredible from that perspective.
Oh, that's great to hear. Mary Jo, any thoughts there?
I'd like to talk a little bit about the store because I think they have started talking about the store as the open store. And I think this is something many devs have been waiting for quite a while, at least since Windows 8, for Microsoft to open up the store, not just to UWP apps, but also to PWAs, to Win32 apps, to make it easier for any kind of developer to get their app in the store and to monetize their app through this new Microsoft advertising platform that they talked about today. I feel like the Microsoft Store has been a little bit of a rocky road up to this point, and I think they know where their points of weakness are, and they're trying to address them with some of these big changes that they're making through the store.
Also, doing that great job with open payment systems, right? You can use
Mhm.
Microsoft's payment system if you want, but in sharp contrast to what we see from the other big platform makers, you can bring your own as well, and Microsoft doesn't take a cut of that. And so, open in this case, it means open a little more broadly, right? It's in
Mhm.
many ways the most open, if you will, of those app stores.
Yeah. Some definitely big pushes from across the team to
Yeah.
enable this. All right, so we briefly touched upon this a little bit before, but would love to talk about collaborative apps and low code. So we saw news from Power Platform, including Power Pages and Express Design and Power Apps. We also saw the new live share experience for apps in Microsoft Teams. Mary Jo, it seems like both professional and citizen developers have a lot of ways to make their lives easier and build new
Mhm.
interactions into their apps. I'd love to hear your thoughts first.
Yeah. Definitely. I really liked the idea that Microsoft brought up last year during a couple of the conferences about loop components. And today we heard a little bit more about how that vision is going to be enabled through adaptive cards, which was very interesting. I knew they were building loop components for their own applications. I knew there was going to be a push to get third-party developers to develop loop components, but I didn't really know how that was going to come together. So today we saw a little bit of that in the keynote about how people can use adaptive cards to start building their own loop components that'll be integrated into Teams, into Outlook, and even Outlook.com at some point as well. So that's pretty interesting where they're going with that. And then the live share capability. I feel like I'm at a point where can Teams get any more collaborative? I guess it can, right? It's like, okay, everything about Teams is collaborative, but here's another way to make it even more collaborative, right? And this idea of live share in Teams is you're not just passively screen sharing. People who are in a Teams meeting will actually be able to watch together, to annotate things together, and build things together inside of a Teams meeting using this capability. So if you already thought Teams was collaborative, just wait. It's going to get even more collaborative.
Yeah, I was definitely
Yeah.
super impressed with that. Paul, would love to hear your thoughts about it.
Yeah, no, I was blown away by that part of it as well. I keep, of course, in the back of my mind, I keep thinking, can't we just meet in person again? But it is,
One day.
but we also have to acknowledge that the future is going to be this hybrid world, and some people will be in a place together and some people won't, and making that experience more natural is something, it's not just a live share. It's some of the experiences you see in Teams. It's some of the mesh stuff and so forth as well. But yeah, I always. I think of this to me the big thing here is this low code stuff. I've watched over the years. You think back to something like Windows PowerShell, which obviously still exists and is big, but you're asking IT administrators to take on a semi-developer role to automate processes and so forth. And there are some who I think will head right to that, and some who won't. But I think the power, which is kind of a good word here, of some of these tools you see in the Power Platform, especially around low code and no code, is this ability to bring in what we call the citizen developer, as we mentioned, and people who didn't think that they would be able to do this work and maybe found this a little daunting, and making that easier, I think, is very powerful. Sorry, I keep saying that.
I know, it's all back to
Because
the
it is
power.
powerful. No, but but it is. And this is when you first hear the notion of no code, especially, you think, yeah, well, we'll see how that works out. But I do think low code and no code have what it takes to go the distance. And again, I'm really looking forward to spending more time with some of the things that are happening around Power Pages, especially, which I think is incredible, and that Express Designer and Power Apps too. I just think these things are. I think these might be bigger than we appreciate, than many might appreciate at the moment.
Yeah, I think we said power probably like 25 times in the
Yeah,
last. I
can't
love
stop
it.
saying power.
I
Sorry.
love it.
Is there another word for power? That means
No,
power.
it's accurate. I like it. So another thing we saw trending on Twitter a lot was around Project Volterra. We'll love to get your thoughts on that. Mary Jo, why don't you start first?
I feel like we're talking around Project Volterra. I'm like, let's talk about Project Volterra.
Let's talk Volterra.
Yeah. So Project Volterra is a dev kit, although that's kind of a weird name for what this thing is. When you saw images of it from Panos and in the keynote, it's like a little mini PC, right? And it's stackable. It even has the Microsoft logo on the top, like a Surface device does, which is interesting. It is meant for people to use as a developer platform for ARM. Which, there have been ARM dev kits in the past, and it's been, they're okay, but it didn't really excite people. But I feel like now that this is coming from Microsoft in conjunction with Qualcomm, and there's, it's a general purpose dev kit, but it also has a little AI twist because it has a neural processing unit built in. And Microsoft said recently they think every PC going forward is going to have an NPU in addition to a CPU and a GPU. So a lot of people are like, yeah, but none of them have that right now, or almost none of them have that. And here you go. Here's a platform that has it. Now you can see what the potential is to develop for an AI app where the compute power can be partitioned between the local device and the cloud. And this is, again, the hybrid loop idea that Microsoft's pushing at the show. And until you have something you can build a hybrid loop app on, it's kind of just a concept. But the idea is you could take this dev kit and build something like they showed today. I mean, maybe not, with all the bells and whistles, but get started in that space today using this dev kit when it comes out later this year.
Yeah. Paul?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you follow hardware advances, you know that, we used to do everything off the GPU, and that's really inefficient. And we started pushing tasks off the GPU. We found that certain tasks run wonderfully off the GPU and save power and battery life and so forth if it's a portable computer. Now we have these hybrid architectures, even on the Intel side, where you see performance cores and efficient cores, and now this notion of a neural processing unit as well. And it's yet another processor type, for lack of a better term, where you can off-put some of the computing and do so much more efficiently. They showed the example with the kind of facial recognition going and how efficient that is. That was a Stevie Batish segment, if I'm not mistaken. I thought was pretty great. Where in a machine that does have an NPU, like this dev box, the Volterra box, that occurs without basically incurring an appreciable, not performance, but I should say power savings or CPU hit. It's amazing. It's just, and I think, a lot of what's happening on the client side from a processor perspective is being influenced heavily by the ARM chipset. So you're starting to see the x86 chipset makers start to incorporate this sort of thing. Obviously, this is happening first on ARM. That makes some sense. But I bet we see this kind of capability available more broadly in the future as well.
Yeah. I really like the demo that they showed where it had the facial recognition. Yep. She even put on the mask, like Sheila's demoing it. I love it. And yeah, I think that they were showing coupled with noise reduction, like all the different features and what the workload would actually.
Well, he spoke to kind of I don't remember the exact number, but I want to say it was like whether it was a 20 or a 50 watt hit to the CPU. If it was the CPU, that would max out the CPU, right? Yeah. On almost any PC that anyone would buy today. But on the NPU, it was a low single-digit percentage, nothing, and that's a huge advance. That's just a huge advance.
No, it's awesome. So I know we're just getting started in Build. We're only a couple hours into day one.
Oh, is there more?
Is there more? What are you excited to see? I know we have Kevin Scott's keynote tomorrow, our CTO. Any exciting news you're looking forward to or want to hear?
I felt like today was one of the first times, at least from my standpoint as a non-developer, that it felt possible as a developer to build something with AI. I feel like up till this point, there have been a lot of advances at Microsoft around AI, the partnership with OpenAI, the different cognitive services that Microsoft has. But until today, I kind of felt like, yeah, that's for a group of people that they have a lot of resources. They're at huge companies. It's for a very special class of people. And I feel like today, I hate using this term because it's overused, democratization of AI was kind of a big theme. And so I feel like maybe Kevin Scott's talk is going to touch on this too. Instead of just like, here's the giant training models that you as a developer, maybe one day you'll get to use, maybe never. Now, here are things that you actually can use as a developer, even at a smaller organization. And I think if that comes through as a theme, that would be really interesting and kind of put AI more as a centerpiece instead of just kind of a, oh, that's cool someday thing. Now it's cool today thing.
Yeah. Paul?
Yeah, I love that. I think Microsoft's biggest strength as a company is the democratization of whatever technology, and extending that to AI, like you said, is fantastic. I've been trying to get Mary Jo on the Xbox as a gamer, but I think we're going to get her to be an AI developer first. It's possible. I'm waiting for the day we're going to wake up one day and she's going to say, "I made something with Express Designer and Power Apps."
One day, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, and I've kind of highlighted the things that I'm super interested in this show. That's absolutely one of them, and I'm looking forward to learning more about that kind of stuff. But I'm really interested in the Volterra stuff, the ARM stuff, the hybrid loop stuff, the adaptive cards. I mean, this is so much. In many ways, this has made me want to learn more, which is ultimately what I'm looking for from a show like this. I mean, like I said, I think I said this earlier. I actually came away from the keynote somewhat energized, which, if anyone knows me, is a big deal. So
that's very surprising, right there.
Yeah,
That's your biggest surprise.
I'm excited to learn more.
That's always a good takeaway.
We didn't mention Metaverse once yet, which is kind of interesting because that was such a big theme last year at Build. But there is going to be a session, I know, on Microsoft's view of the Metaverse where people are going to talk about not just Teams for Mesh, but also a lot of the work that's happening on the industrial side, like with robotics, like was shown in the keynote this morning, digital twins, a lot of the themes that are very pertinent to businesses that I think not the general public may not see that as metaverse, but that's actually where the money is in the metaverse. And it's much more tangible and near term. And I know it's an enterprise thing, but it's kind of the applied side of the metaverse. And I think that's going to be very interesting this week at Build as well.
Yeah. Paul, any thoughts on Metaverse?
Yeah, I mean, actually, it came up briefly in the keynote, but only briefly. I look at this as an extension of the work that Microsoft is doing in Teams to make these collaborative meetings more collaborative. I think in the business space, short term, the big impact is going to be in that sort of thing. Anything we can do to make virtual or hybrid get-togethers or meetings or whatever more natural, I think is important. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, as you said, the future is hybrid, so I think we're definitely exploring that. So it's great.
Sure.
Awesome. So I think we're almost at the end of our time together. A huge thank you to Mary Jo Foley and Paul Thurrott for joining us today. Really sincerely appreciate your time and analyzing the keynote with me. Paul, let's start with you. Where can people find you and your work?
Yes, and my unfortunately named, my name, Thurrott.com. THURROTT.com. And also, if you want to reach out to me on Twitter, it's, of course, at Thurrott as well. Sorry. I wish I had a simpler name.
Mary Jo?
Yes, I have a much easier to spell and understand site and Twitter handle, I believe. My site is allaboutmicrosoft.com. My Twitter handle is at Mary Jo Foley.
Awesome. And both of you, of course, thank you so much. Really appreciate you joining. And everyone also, of course, you can find both Mary Jo and Paul on the Windows Weekly podcast as well. You can see they're outfitted with their mics, they're prepped. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you very much. It's fun. Yep.
Good seeing you.